I'm with Dustin Perry of Kingfisher Metals, KFR, on the TSX Venture. And Kingfisher has had a pretty powerful start to 2025 so far. We're going to dig into it today. You know, Dustin, I want to start with how everything has come about. You know, if you think back to where the company was on January 1st versus where it is today, can you just walk us through what's happened? A lot has happened, and how did it all come about?
So, beginning of January, we would have been moving towards closing that just shy of $2 million financing that we announced in December. That financing was there to pay for the acquisition of the Ball Creek West claims, which took $1 million. But we also added a bit more hard dollars to the coffer, but we really treated that as a positioning round to get some new good shareholders in. And when we were doing that raise, I was fully transparent in letting people know, look, we're going to be doing another raise to fund drilling. This is not to fund drilling. And just to clarify, like you see some things on the bull boards and whatnot of people thinking, oh, you got $1 million or whatever. That's enough for a drill program. $1 million is not enough for a drill program when you're using helicopters. It's even $2 or $3 million isn't really enough, because a lot of that's going into your fixed costs, and you're not going to get that many meters out of it. You need to do an impactful program if you want to actually be efficient when you go out and do exploration. So it is capital intensive. So anyways, we did that. Spent a lot of time on telling the story. We built the team out over that time period. We added a new director, Paul Gruner, who was formerly the CEO of the Tahltan Nation Development Corporation, which was under his leadership, I think, the largest Indigenous business in BC and the economic arm of the Tahltan. So we're entirely within Tahltan territory in the Golden Triangle. We also added Ashwath Mehra to chair our advisory board. Ashwath was the chairman of GT Gold. He was a founding partner of Glencore. So he worked with Mark Rich at Phillip Brothers and then Glencore, and then they created MRI Trading, which they sold. He's also lead director at Collective. So, very astute investor, smart businessman, and a lot of contacts. And a lot of people made a lot of money on GT Gold. And he agreed with me that this looks like potential for the next GT Gold in the Golden Triangle. Similar setup. We've got about twice the amount of ground, but we've got excellent porphyry targets that came about in a similar way to how GT Gold's discovery came about. There's a big soil anomaly. They found an epithermal gold system, and then they went to the valley bottom, did geophysics, and found a porphyry. Same thing's already happened on this project. The porphyry just hasn't been given a good shake, and we've got a lot of other porphyry targets underneath the epithermal system as well. So similar setup, similar distance from the highway as GT Gold. That fed into the financing we just did, which was, it was successful, but the big key is the caliber and the quality of shareholders that came into that was really good. We turned away money, and we really focused on making sure we had good people in, we added several new institutions to the roster, but a lot of ultra high net worth people came in with pretty substantial checks. A lot of people that made money on GT Gold, the usual crowd of the wise Vancouver geologist crowd. Now we're in a position where the drill program is effectively underway. This weekend we are clearing our pad locations. So in BC, you need to do that with a biologist and an archaeologist. Go out and just check to make sure there's nothing there, and pad building and loggers out there to fall the trees the same day as once it's being cleared. So the drill will be arriving on site, I think mid next week, and I'll be on site on the 23rd. So we're kind of off to the races. The second drill arrives about a week after the first one.
So that's impressive. I mean, just thinking back to late last year, I picked Kingfisher on my tax loss, silly season list at the end of 2024. It was 16 cents a share, but I could sense in talking to you and just, understanding the project and this target area and the potential here that this could turn out to be a very good pick in 2025. And so far it is playing out that way. But it is a pretty powerful transformation to go from like November, where you're like working hard to raise a couple $1 million, to then raising 10.9 million and turning down money. So how did that happen?
Well, I will note that on the fall raise, we did have a lot of money offered to us from traditional flow through funds, which you do see a lot of VC explorers taking that money and then getting bent over 4 months later. And I did not want to go down that route. We wanted, there's so many things that go into a proper company, like the project, the management, but also the rest of the team. But the cap structure is key. And that was the key. We did a rollback a little over a year ago, and we wanted to make sure that that everything was tight going into this. Like we got a renewed lease on a public company, so we need to go about this very strategically and putting the right people into the deal, and that was the key for this. But yeah, a lot of hard work went into this. I don't think I really had a day off until I guess 2 weekends ago, right as we were closing the financing. I had my bachelor party already set up and had a good weekend to let loose down in Mexico City with a bunch of buddies. A bunch of my own geologists came down there as well. But I hadn't really had a break until then. So it's been a lot of hard work. The team's been working really hard. I forgot to add, we did double our exploration team over that time period as well. So we've got a much more robust team. So a lot of things happened. Ultimately, it's just putting your head down and getting it done and staying the course.
So there's a bit of buzz here on Kingfisher just because of what you laid out there and the team that you've assembled. Now the shareholders that are involved in the company, very strong, list of shareholders, and this drill program that you're embarking upon. So let's get into the drill program. 7,500 meters of diamond drilling. There's a lot of other stuff going on, like mapping, sampling. You're going to do an airborne survey, IP geophysics, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be a lot happening. But let's talk about the drilling and just run us through the targets again. You could share your screen or not share your screen, but just let's just go through the targets again. And how many meters are you going to allocate to each target?
Yeah, so I can just here, I'll just share my screen here. I'll do it pretty simply in 2D view. 1 sec here. Are you able to see? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the project. These are just gold anomalies plotted on here. Everybody familiar with the story should be familiar with these figures from our presentation, and if not, you can go see copper and gold in there. So the area we're focused in is this area here, which is a very sizable gold and soil anomaly with a fair bit of historic drilling in it. Drilling was initially focused in this area here, which is called the Pit gold deposit, where there was a small non-compliant resource in the 80s done by LAC Minerals. I forget the exact numbers, but something in the order of 500,000 tons at 3 to 4 grams. Very shallow at surface. And then subsequently, they drilled lower down the slope on what they originally called the lower alteration zone, which would trend down here. Golden Ridge, which was the previous or most recent operator in this area, followed up and mostly targeted in this area. They went up here and had a really nice intercept of about 9 grams gold over 27 meters. Then they did more drilling focused within this area. And then they went across the valley and did a soil survey that extended over to Williams, where they made a nice copper gold porphyry discovery. That being said, there was only about 600 meters of drilling here, which would be these kind of transparent holes in the background. And the drill holes were done with a drill that maxed out at 600 meters, and it was drilled kind of as if it was a vein in a way, as if it was a plane. They were drilled on a fence, not going deep. So some of these holes have one kind of crossing intersect across a porphyry that appears to be subvertical. So our idea is we need to get down deeper. That's what was done at Red Chris, and I'm just going to share here. I've got this workspace. Are you seeing? Has it changed? Are you still seeing the map?
I'm still seeing the map.
All right. One sec. Let's just change here. Okay, so let's just look at Red Chris here. We've got a workspace going and like a whiteboard just with lots of regional examples to look at. But if you look, the key is looking at Red Chris here. So these were the initial holes done into this area, would have been up in this area. And Imperial came in and drilled some really deep vertical holes. And what they found is basically you've got, this is the historic pit up here, and then they've got, which would be larger now based on what they did, but there would have been a historic pit up top. And then as you get down, the system really broadens. So where we are in the system is in the upper levels here, and you've got a high grade core identified with intercepts like 190 meters of 0.6 gold, 0.5 copper. But you really just have one intercept across them. So what we're doing this year is we're going to come much steeper and try to get down on this thing to extend the system anywhere from 250, 300 meters on the first few holes below the known limit of drilling. The ultimate goal here is to see if there's a big body at depth. And at Red Chris, it's more volcanic, hosted up high. And then as you get deeper, you've got different phases of intrusions with the actual mineralized intrusions coming into them. And you've got a more traditional porphyry kind of shape, a more bulbous shape, where it's more structurally focused at top. And a lot of the systems in the Golden Triangle have a similar structural control, where you do get the higher levels are smaller and more focused. And then as you get deeper, you get a big, broader ore body. So the goal of the first couple holes at Williams is to determine where this thing is going at depth. And the only way to do that is to drill deeper. And, you know, porphyries can, like right here, there's 1,000 meters right there. So they can go a long ways, but are you going to go step way out and drill like that? No, you're gonna stay pretty close to see if it's down there and get down there with the least amount of meters, and then you're gonna go do bigger step outs.
So why did Golden Ridge, if they identified they had tagged into a porphyry system, why didn't they drill deeper than 200? I mean, just knowing porphyries, like 200 meters is nothing. Like that's like a, you know, that's like an oxide gold target is 200-meter drilling. Like porphyry, you know, drilling is 500, 600, 700 meters.
No, they got lower than that. So one thing to keep in mind is it's on a slope here. So depending on where the holes are, you're going to automatically get
so they were drilling from the slope.
Yeah, but they're angled holes though. So, and when I say angled, I mean they're moderate angled. They weren't drilling 80+ degree holes, which is
they're drilling like 45 or, you know,
more steeper than that, probably 60, 65 in that range, but it makes a pretty big difference over a longer hole. And the drill they had would only go to 600 meters. So, and you know, you get out of the system in places, which is the exact same thing you see at other porphyries. And the other thing to keep in mind is you can get in and out of these systems very quickly with these more alkaline porphyries. Grade can ramp up very quickly. And there's a lot of questions to be solved here. You know, for one thing, we only have one drill hole from within the zone of mineralization. The rest of the drill core was basically destroyed. The company didn't have cash and they didn't pay an expediter bill, and the expediter bulldozed the drill core. So we have hole 13, which is the best intercept, which is this hole here, which we have in my office or warehouse here in Squamish, and we have shown it to strategics. But we need the rest of, like, we've done our best job of relogging from photos. There are good photos. It's fairly recent work, but we still need the drill core ourselves to actually make informed decisions.
That's crazy that they would destroy the drill core like that. At the very least, you keep it as ransom for another company that comes along and wants it, and then you sell it to them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, the first holes here are fairly conservative, but they are going, 250 or so or 300 meters below mineralization, and then two of them are actually starting up above where there's a bit of a gap. We've done. I'm not going to share this on here because it's probably against 43101, but like, we've done our own Leapfrog models of, well, the intrusions, but also the grade shells. And there's a weird shape when you put it into Leapfrog and generate that, because it's based on where you have drilling. If you don't have drilling, it's not going to put an ore body there. And there's some gaps where we see surface mineralization, and these upper holes would be trying to add potentially a couple hundred meters more mineralization above. And because of the amount of drilling and where it is, you just have, we don't really have a good handle on the orientation of the system. It appears to be subvertical, but we don't know, is it, if it's over 1,000 meters and it's dipping one way, you can get away from it pretty quickly at depth. So we need to know exactly which orientation it's going before we start sinking really deep holes into it. The ultimate goal of getting these holes into the system is to lead towards drilling a vertical hole, kind of like what they did at Red Chris.
So 3 holes at Williams from 3 different pads to vector into how this thing is plunging at depth, or the dip, I guess, and then the 4th hole would be designed to go right down the throat of it.
Well, yeah, to take it to depth, and these holes as well. It's not just like we want to get the orientation. We want to actually have the rocks, because we don't have them, so we can make our own logs and potentially adjust the photo relogs we've already done. We want additional it's all oriented core we're drilling, so we want additional structural information. There are faults in the area that are potentially terminating mineralization. I don't think there's a lot of offset, but we need to know where those faults are, which some of these holes are designed to start outside a fault and come into the system. So we want to know like what is causing the grade to ramp up. We also want to see, is the grade increasing at depth substantially? Right now, we're in a regime that is, you start with phyllic alteration at the surface, and you've got predominantly pyrite, maybe a bit of lead, zinc, silver. Then you get lower down and you're getting chalcopyrite over bornite, but we're not in the bornite over chalcopyrite or the straight bornite yet, which is, you see that transition at Red Chris, and that's where the grade, as you get lower, the grade really pumps.
Yeah, I like that straight bornite zone, Dustin. Let's get into the straight bornite zone.
Absolutely. So those are the first 3 holes we're going to drill there. Those, without a doubt, are the most conservative holes of the program. Like, we know we're going to hit mineralization. The question is, are we going to be able to extend this system? Are we going to be able to hit better grade? That's a big question. But then, we've got these red holes here. These are the priority, as in, like, we're going to drill these holes. These ones weren't colored priority here, but we are going to drill them. So these holes in here are drilling a mirror image of this. And what I will do here is, give me one sec here. I'm going to just open up Leapfrog.
So the lower Hank porphyry target, you've only got 1 priority hole traced out there, but obviously if that first hole at lower Hank hits, you're going to be putting more holes into that one. And that one, I mean, would you say the lower Hank is like the wildcat target, the one that you really don't know much about?
Yes and no. Like, we know a fair bit about these things. There's no hole into it yet. You've got very impressive Gaussons in both of these creeks, like incredible geochemistry, both in streams and soils. And when I mean incredible, I mean, like, you've got like soils up to 1 gram in this area. We had Stephanie Socorro, one of our advisors, who's an absolute top-notch mapper, did her PhD on Lahire. and worked in First Quantum's Global Porphyry Group. She mapped this area in detail over the last 2 years, and she'll be out there again in July. And we've actually got a new intrusion that wasn't previously identified here. She found some monzonite cemented breccias with chalcopyrite in these creeks that wasn't previously identified. We've done spectral work, and it all points towards a hotspot here. She's mapped the pyrite and sulfide contours, and it all kind of, everything points towards something being right in here. And even the epithermal mineralization out here, the metal patterns actually plunge down in this direction. Whereas previous workers thought this was an extension of Williams. We think when you've got a lot of things going on, it's easy for them to mask kind of where things are coming from. But our view is that this mineralization is actually coming off of this. Whereas up here, this mineralization is likely coming off what we believe is a porphyry underneath the upper Hank target. So, you know, Williams, Kipe, which is another target, which we can get into, and then Williams East. I don't know, that's what we're calling it right now. Maybe it will change. This is a lookalike of Williams over here. And then, and we're going to drill these for sure. But the upper Hank is also pretty damn exciting. You've got let me just bring the geology up on here. So this is mapped alteration. You can see some little blebs of potassic in here. There's not as much outcrop at Williams, but this mapping was mainly focused on the Hank area. And you have in yellow these quartz, basically QSP phyllic alteration, a little blue hit here of argillic alteration, and then propylitic outboard. But this is a big lithocap right here. And this is another lithocap here. And basically everything that's not colored in here is basin. And our belief is that this is just one giant lithocap here with a post-mineral intrusion coming in. But really, if you focus in on here, this is a hot spot. You've got pretty much this entire area is breccia. Focused in the middle is a milled breccia. So it's ground up breccia with a ton of pyrite in it. And if you look in 3D at it, you've got a deep chargeability anomaly that has a pipe-like feature coming right to surface where it hits that breccia.
Yeah, so that chargeability anomaly is just like, I mean, that's a screamer. That's a screamer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those chargeability values are exceptionally high. And I love the zonation in the chargeability anomaly, which is very much characteristic of a porphyry.
Yeah, let me just show you just a leapfrog view here of Williams, so you can get an idea of. So, you know, we've displayed the 3D inversion data, but we haven't really, like in our presentation, we don't have the 2D data, but this is the 2D line we acquired last year. And you can see the Williams body over here. So this is looking south. These blue things are some of our planned holes, which aren't categorized in this. You can see intercepts of gold equivalent in here. This one didn't hit as much, but I really do need to caution people. You can have a hole that doesn't hit amazing within an ore body. If you look at anywhere else, in, you know, if you look at Red Chris, you'll have holes, and then you step 50 meters over and you're into it. There's a lot of reasons for that. You could be in a late intrusion. You could be in a less reactive rock package. But the big key here is you've got phyllic alteration up top with these really high pyrite zones, and you've got some breccia bodies and dikes coming up to surface, such as this hole here. And then you've got really good mineralization starting down here. And right now, you know, you look at this, it's hard to tell which way it's going. It might be going this way, might be going that way. We don't think so. The IP points towards everything kind of coming into the middle. And I don't know how I can annotate on here. Is there, oh,
so the hole that didn't hit much, that's, you know, that you pointed out, that one is that one of the holes where they threw away the core?
Yeah.
Okay. But you have some photos of that hole.
Oh yeah, we've got photos of everything, and you are getting little whiffs of potassic alteration down here. with
Okay.
some with some pretty decent. You're getting. Let's just see here. What are some of these intercepts? What am I doing? Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so that right there is 0.51% copper and 0.1 grams gold.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's dead by any stretch of the imagination. And but the big key here for us is this is a sizable chargeability signature. It's got connectivity coincident with it, and this looks like a mirror image.
Yeah.
And it's untested. It along strike about 500 meters to the south. You've got a gold system at where they basically tested the pirate at the top, but they haven't gone deep. In our opinion, like this area, this shoulder here, underneath here, right smack dab in the middle, like chargeability of 20, that's the low point here.
Yeah.
These are all getting higher. That's pretty normal porphyry chargeability. And then right in the middle, and keep in mind with IP, like the bottom of your section has way less confidence. So it might not be real down here. It might be lower, it might be higher, it might not even exist. I don't like porphyries come from depth, so there's got to be something down here.
When you get 1,000 meters deep in the IP survey, the data becomes a little wacky. And yeah, you're right. I mean, that could be shallower or it could be deeper. It's really hard to tell. You have to drill it. But yeah, this is pretty compelling, to say the least. Yeah, and that's a fair point about how you can have one hole that isn't fantastic right near the ore body. It's not a perfect science, and especially in a porphyry system with this large of a chargeability signature, you need a lot more drilling to figure it out.
Well, the other thing too we've noticed is the bottom of this hole stops in a fault. We have it modeled that you're probably 20 meters. Like, I think if they had drilled that hole another 30, 40 meters, they probably would have got right into it, is our guess. So we're going to be testing right up against, and I think things juice up against faults, which is pretty common with structural porphyries. So we'll be testing that. We'll be going down quite a ways deeper. I can just put it into 1 second. I'll just put it in actual section view so you can see. So we're going quite a ways below the known system. And 1 sec. Quite a ways below the known system here and adding quite a bit of vertical here. There's a big gap in drilling in here. So if you just look even at the distance here.
What was their deepest hole? Was about 600 meters?
They're mostly all right at 600 meters.
Interesting.
So that hole there is getting you 400 meters below these really good intercepts.
So let's take a step back. I don't want to go through every single target in excruciating detail, but so for investors who want to understand what good results would look like, what would good results be to you?
So, well, Willie, we want to see the mineralization continue at depth. And we want to see porphyry indications across the valley there at that other, I guess, Williams East. So we want that mirror image. If we are hitting porphyry on both of similar grades but longer intercepts, I think we're in a very good position. Obviously, we'd like to see some longer intercepts of the good grades that they've already hit. That 190 meters of 0.6 gold, 0.5 copper. Like, if we can drill 300 meter type intercepts of that, it's starting to look pretty damn interesting. I think, from a corporate standpoint, with, under the premise of we're trying to sell this to a major mining company, if we can find additional porphyries in this area, and they don't have to be 900 meters of 1% copper. If we can show that there's a cluster of porphyries here, that's really what's going to get people excited. And if we can show that Williams has a lot more scale at depth and around it, that's really going to get people excited. And like I said, they don't have to be the best intercepts in the world to start. A lot of those come down the road. Like, Red Chris was many years down the road. Obviously, we'd like to have some really good hits to reduce our cost of capital early on, because this will take a lot of drilling. There's no doubt about that. But I would say if we're hitting similar type grades in new areas or extensions of the ore body, it's a massive success of a program, given it's our first crack at it.
So like a 300-meter hole that is grading about 0.5% copper, 0.5 grams per ton gold. Like if you get, like an interval of that nature, then it's game on for sure. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
But like, okay,
yeah.
So the thing is, it's kind of interesting because what is good, depends upon location and infrastructure and all this stuff, right? So, in some porphyry systems, like 0.3 copper, 0.3 gold might be a really economic, intercept. But as we get a little farther afield here in the Golden Triangle, the bar gets raised up a bit, and you have, I would say, number one, you have to show scale. That's going to be huge here, is to show the scale. And obviously we have the scale based upon the soils, the geophysics, and all the untested stuff at surface that's just lighting up all over the place. So the scale is there for sure, but now you have to prove the scale in the drilling. And then, grade obviously matters. But I just from my perspective, I think that what I'll be looking for is sort of that 0.5% copper, level. And even I don't think, it has to be 0.5 copper, 0.5 gold, like in every hole, like not even close. It's about showing the system is really big and showing that it runs across a large body of tonnage.
Yeah, you need to see these things go to depth. On the size program we're doing, where we're testing a bunch of different targets, we don't have the means to go drill a ton of like 1,200 meter holes this year. This program is designed to evaluate the area and determine, and ideally get our share price up and determine where we go and really test it the following year. That being said, if we find what justifies a 20,000 meter program next year, it will be a massive success for our share price. And also with that being said, as every exploration company should be, we're working on we're working on our contingencies too. We've got this huge project, so we're doing all this other work to make sure we are, continuing to refine and like elevate our pipeline of targets. So the area between Hank and Mary, there's a 2.5 kilometer gap in soils there where you've got 1 gram soils at the limit of sampling, and it's on an incredibly prospective trend that goes right up to Mary. And at Mary, you've got pretty interesting grades, 290 meters at 0.7 gold equivalent. And this huge trend hasn't been evaluated. Like the only IP, we did the 1 line in ME last year that had, looked like a very good IP target. That's a standalone drill target. Mary's a big IP anomaly, and then the Hank Williams area is a big IP anomaly. There's no data in between. So we're going to do more IP within there. We've also got the airborne MMT survey, and then a very, very strong team of mappers. So Roy Gregg, Charlie Gregg's son, who's a University of Arizona PhD, he'll be out there leading a team. Stephanie will be out there as well. Gail will be out there when she can. And we're going to be looking at not just that area, but also further afield to the west on all the new ground we've acquired. So a lot of work happening.
I think that's a really important point. Like we just focused on the Williams and Hank, areas, but the reality is the Highway 37 property footprint is many multiples of just that one area of focus. I mean, that's going to be the area of focus for the drilling. in 2025, but obviously there's a whole lot more potential across the property. And I think it's also important to point out the neighbors, right? Like your neighbors are Newmont and Teck, and you can probably name a few others in the area, but some of the biggest mining companies in the world are right adjacent to you.
Yeah, and as my new VPX pointed out, who he was the VPX at Northwest Copper for a long time, so he worked at Quenica, where I also started my career. He worked in that area, but then all the way up to their projects, basically right at Kemess, right to the Toodoggone. And we've been talking about everything, and it's just like, like compared to the Toodoggone, like we are downtown. Like we've got a power line you can see from the upper Hank target. You'd be able to see a power line from there and the highway. We're right off the highway. You've got mines right there. You've got all these access points. So we're going to be doing a lot of video work this summer, which is going to highlight that. You drive to a project, you're passing what's happening at KSM, you're passing the SK Road, you're passing the Bruce Jack Road, you pass the Galore Creek Road, and then if you go further north, you get to the Red Chris mine. It's you are in mining country, where the biggest deposits in BC occur, and this is the largest junior held position with incredibly fertile ground. We're focused on a small area for drilling, but eventually we're going to be drilling more targets. And it's exploration. You don't like your best target might not be the deposit. Often it's like the 10th tier target. My understanding is that Aurora at A-Mark was nowhere near their top target, and it was way down the list, and now it's their top target. So you never know. We're putting our best foot forward right now with all the evidence and data we have. It's science. You got to follow kind of the scientific process, but you never know, which is why it's important to keep on doing all this other work of evaluating these other targets with new sets of eyes and new technology. You never know.
So you'll drill Williams, you'll drill Kipe, you'll drill Lower Hank, you'll drill the Upper Hank, and then you may, depending upon how it goes, you may drill some other targets as well. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a few other things we're interested in. The Rainbow target, which we don't really talk about much. There's a couple holes into it. It was drilled. What do they drill? 91 meters of 0.7 gold with maybe 500 ppb, 500 ppm copper. It's in a completely till-covered valley where it's basically the only outcrop is mineralized. Pretty interesting target. It looks like a Maricunga style system, very thin, wispy veins, higher level, so you don't have the copper in it yet, but a lot of magnetite in it. So maybe do a ground mag survey there. It's pretty, if you got a lot of magnetite, you can do mag and it will work well. There's a lot going on, and we would like to retain a little bit of flexibility towards the end of the program, but it's really hard to comment now. We're going to get those deep holes into Williams first and hopefully have assays out before we're done drilling. And, we'll see where we land. Like we have potential, not necessarily with funds, but with length of season. We have potential to do a larger season if the means were there.
Right. So the drill pads are being constructed beginning this weekend, and so does that mean that the drill rig will probably be arriving in a couple weeks?
I think the drill rig arrives on the 18th.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the first order of business is there's a previous hole, I think it was Hank 18005. So a 2018 hole basically hit an aquifer, and it's been making a lot of water. We just saw some photos of it, and it doesn't appear to be creating water right now, but it is a permit condition of ours to go and seal that hole. It was left unsealed, and it's causing a fair bit of erosion on a slope. So we do have to put a pad on there and close it off first, which will take hopefully just a couple days. Basically, you're putting cement down a hole to jam it.
Right.
And we'll have a pad there, which might be a good spot to drill from the future, but it's not exactly where we're planning on. So once that's done, I think 21st, probably summer solstice, we'll be coring on the first hole, and I'm going to be there on the 23rd. So not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. I'm going to head up there for a week. And then the second drill, I think it arrives about a week after the first one.
Nice. Exciting. Okay.
Yep.
7,500 meters, possibly more. We'll see. Fingers crossed. So I guess the final question, Dustin, is, you put in all this legwork. This is like literally years of your life you put into this, and it kind of, in some ways, no pressure, it culminates in this summer and what the results are going to be. Obviously, if the results aren't fantastic, then you got to have sort of a plan B. If the results are fantastic and you can expand the drill program and raise money at a higher share price, then it's game on in a big way. Just psychologically, like, how do you go into this season and stay calm, I guess?
We're amped. Like, we're really amped up. I really want to get these holes into Williams to see where this thing goes at depth. The other targets, upper Hank, lower Hank, that's obviously more of a mystery because there's no drilling into it. But if we hit something on one of those, holy moly, like that could be wild. It might be deeper than what we're like. We are drilling an 800-meter hole at upper Hank, so I think we should be getting into the levels of where a porphyry would be, but it's still a lot of unknowns. So it's always going to be a little nerve-wracking. It's kind of like the risk reward. Like, if we hit a new porphyry there, it's like, holy geez, this could be the biggest porphyry there. But the Williams area, like, we're pretty confident we're going to have some good intercepts there. And that mirror image I showed across the valley from Williams, it's like, what else is it? I'd be surprised if it's not a porphyry. It's just so many variables in exploration. So yeah, definitely stress going into it, but that's also part of the job as a CEO. If you're not stressed, you're probably not taking your job serious enough. And ultimately, you know, we've got a great team to handle everything, so at least I'm not stressing about that. We've been a little understaffed in the past, where you try to take a long weekend off and you're having to pick up the phone at 4 a.m. or whatever to sort something out. It's not really the case anymore. We've got a big enough team that's very experienced. So let's let the drill and the rocks do the talking here.
Exciting. Yeah, I think that's well said. Like, if you're not a little nervous, if you're not stressed, then you're probably not doing the job right. And you've also got to be excited and optimistic. You've done a lot of work on this. The targets look phenomenal, like literally top tier gold, silver, copper targets in a great location with massive scale potential. It's like a fusion of KSM and Red Chris in one project. But now it's up to the truth machine. So good luck this summer, Dustin. And I look forward to joining you again for another conversation once we have some more to talk about.
Thanks a lot, Robert. Good to chat.
Sure.